Governance and outsourcing is a mechanism that allows organizations to transfer the delivery of services to third parties. All right, so what we're saying is it's important to remember that if we outsource, right, we're transferring the delivery of service to third parties. But when it comes to the governance, we, the company that hired the third party, are ultimately the ones liable. I mean, basically, the liability always rests with the hiring organization's management. In fact, that's why we saw, when you remember the stories years ago about Enron, and whether or not the CEO knew anything about the irregularities of the accounting, he was the one facing jail because he's ultimately responsible for what that organization was doing. So that's to the strength of saying the liability rests up that high. So that means that your outsourcing decisions should be strategic and not thought of as a procurement, not like you just bought a new piece of equipment, but it's there for some of those same strategic reasons we talked about as far as what they're trying to do. If it was to increase your flexibility, increase your resources, take care of core parts of the network. But not only should it be strategic, you need to think about all of the other aspects that I've already talked about with outsourcing, and keep that in mind, especially when it comes to liability and the ultimate controls and the ability to verify that it's working. I mean, all the things I've talked about, it's like I want to go back into it again, but I think I made those clear enough. And one last key is, if it's possible, it's best if you outsource the non-core processes as opposed to your core or key processes. I've already mentioned that outsourcing can make an organization more competitive, but really only if the organization understands what part of the processes would give them the competitive advantage. That means, again, it's back to the strategy. As a strategic resource outsourcing that we use, it should be governed accordingly. But my goal here is not to tell you how to determine what those resources are, but if there was a strategy that they said, that we realize that some of these uses of resources, by having these extra resources, can help us in these areas to be more competitive, then that's great. That helps us with understanding what we're doing. I'll go back to the call center again. The strategy was that we need to provide first-line assistance, help desk assistance to our customers, and I need, to be able to handle a large number of customers. I need to find a way to make a competitive advantage, and one way was outsourcing overseas because it was a lower price, and maybe I got even more resources for for a lower price, and so that gave me that flexibility to have that resource for my customers, and it made me more competitive. Because that's a value add, 24/7 phone support and all those sorts of things. So we need to look at it as we audit to verify what that strategy was. Of course, governance of outsourcing is a set of responsibilities, roles, objectives, and controls that we have that are required for us to manage those third-party provided services, and that's a part of what we're going to look at. Governance of outsourcing should extend to both parties, again, through the use of SLAs and what we call operating level agreements, OLAs. And those should be basically spelled out specifically as far as what our control expectations are, how we're going to manage the outsourcing, and what we expect from the third party. Some of the current approaches to outsourcing governance should be pre-planned and built into the contract, as we said, and it should be a part of the service cost optimization. Another reason we outsource, as I've mentioned, may be an issue of capacity and growth planning, something that we currently can't handle on our own or can't sufficiently handle. So we might need the extra support of these other organizations. And your outsourced services should have a system of monitoring and review in place. So we want to basically know that we have monitoring, the ability for us to check that the IT assurances are meeting up to the agreements. We have to be able to review their service reports. We need to gain the information about any security incidences that they see. In other words, we need that documentation from them. We need to have access to the third-party audits. And we have to be able to work with them to resolve any identified problems that might exist. Now, when we have these contracts for outsourcing, we can include things like service improvement expectations. All right, so what does that mean? Well, let's say whatever it is that I've outsourced you to do for me. Maybe I'm a cable operator, and cable TV, cable phone, cable, all this cool stuff. And I'm bringing up my installation, and I need to get houses hooked down into the system. So I contract with a company to basically get them to go out there and do that work, to hook up the companies or the houses or companies both. And what I want is that I want to know that their work and their quality of work is reducing the number of help desk calls that I have because of the way maybe which I was doing business before, where it was not maybe such the best work, and I was having to go back out there, and right? So we want to see that as a service improvement. Maybe a reduction of system errors if they're working and supporting a key IS function for us. Or maybe improvements to system availability. Now, a lot of times we outsource our WAN connections with service providers, and part of those SLAs we have with the service providers are things like uptime and availability. And so, we want to see our availability with a service provider contract going up and up and up and becoming better and better and better, so that I have guaranteed communications from a branch office to the headquarters and everything else. Again, I've kind of hit all these different little industries trying to give you examples of what we're talking about. But again, that's a part of what we can expect or should look for in a contract, is to say, with your services, I'm expecting some improvements in the service that I offer.